welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo.
And I'm Miss Joan Marie Musi.
And Jeff Key is our guest who's going to talk to us about his new play, The Eyes of Babylon.
Welcome, Jeff.
Fascinating play, and we're going to really hopefully get you all to go see it because it's quite an event, and it has quite a heavy message, an interesting message, but done in a very light way. It's a way of communicating to people that you seem to have a talent for.
I do. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing to say. Thank you. And thanks for coming to the play. Paul came during the previews and was part of a really nice audience. We've had great audiences in New York. New York is actually the ninth, well, we did sort of a bus and truck through Kentucky, but the ninth city that the play's been in. It's really been, mostly the reason I did the play was as a way of speaking about this war and about what it was like for me serving.
And your play is based on a journal that you kept while on duty in Iraq, right?
Not only is it based on the journal, it's pretty much straight out of the journal.
Okay.
I mean, when I was in Iraq, I wrote in the journal in present tense, and when we decided to make it into a solo performance piece, I resisted changing as much as I could. The journal entries in parts of 3 letters. 1 letter to my fellow artists and actors back in Hollywood, and a letter to the family of a fallen Marine in my unit, and then ultimately the letter to my commanding officer when I came out of the closet and used Don't Ask, Don't Tell to be kicked out and became a peace activist and queer rights activist and veterans advocate. And that was in March of 2004.
Now tell me your reasoning about not really changing anything. Was it to preserve the authenticity of the present moment, or?
It was, and I want to tell that story. I mean,
you didn't want to use hindsight, for example.
Right, exactly. I mean, as a playwright sits down, and I think, at least when I approach writing a piece of dramatic literature, you seek to have your characters have an arc and this evolution of their consciousness on some level usually happens, and but that really happened for me. So I didn't have to do that. I didn't, as long as I left the journal entries in order, it happens automatically on the stage. And I mean, one of the night we're starting to get reviews from the New York run, and one of the first ones from Theater Mania mentions, number one, it's a really beautiful review I'm grateful for. The only thing the reviewer says that makes a comment that it doesn't really tell the story of how he became a peace activist, which was, my director was jumping up and down when he read that, because that's exactly what we want.
That is the story, right?
No, that's not the story.
Oh, I see.
And I'm writing a play now, my next solo performance piece called Yankee Doodle Faggot, which tells that story.
Oh, I see. So you wanted to just
tell the story. I wanted to stop the story at the moment that there is a little sort of coda at the end of The Eyes of Babylon. Some of the journal entries, I actually say the date. You'll remember. It begins with 11 September 2001, when I'm in Los Angeles and my mom calls to tell me about what's going on in New York. And intermittently throughout the play, I'll mention the date, and at the end of the play, I mention whatever the date of the performance is to let the audience know, okay, this is now, and I make just a brief comment on what's happened, what's transpired since I went on CNN, but just briefly.
Right, just to sort of bring them up to speed for curiosity's sake.
Mostly to before the interview started today, I was watching some of the pictures of the faces of the fallen, which I do daily. I check because I mentioned that day's total in the play, and I want to tie that up at the end and remind people that we're not talking about something that's over and done with. The subject matter of The Eyes of Babylon, the backdrop of The Eyes of Babylon, is very much still going on. People are dying daily in the occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan, and and we're in the process supposedly of lifting the ban, on gays in the military, and so I was delighted that they didn't hear that part of the story, because that part of the story is not supposed to be there. My going to after I did the play in Los Angeles, a young man, Tim Goodrich, who was one of the co-founders of Iraq Veterans Against the War, came to see the play, back then when I started doing the play, George Bush was still a pretty popular president. There was a lot of popular support in the United States for the war in Iraq, and I really, now it seems melodramatic or whatever, but I figured somebody, I knew that if I started speaking out on the level that I was, that it, who knows how many times I'd actually get to do the play before somebody decided
we need to
shut this guy up. And so one night in Los Angeles, because the theater is small and it's an intimate space, and although as Paul can attest to, there's a lot of levity in the play because you laugh to get through hard times. There's, it's weird. I just don't beat the hell out of the audience. Thank them for coming by beating the hell out of them the whole time. They get to laugh along the way. And I just saw this one guy in the audience who was clearly military and sort of had like a stern look on his face, didn't laugh in the funny parts, and I thought, okay, there he is. That's the guy. Soon out will come the gun. But he introduced himself after. As one of the co-founders of Iraq Veterans Against the War, which I didn't even know existed. I began doing my play and speaking out against the war, thinking I might be the only one, which I hear that from other, dissenting veterans a lot of times. Like, it reminds me of being gay. Like when you're a little kid and you're gay, you think, wow, I'm the only one.
The only person.
The only one that's like this. Right. So he called me one day and said, there's this crazy woman in the ditch in Crawford, Texas. Her son died in Iraq. She's down there. She's determined to speak to the president, and we have to go support her. And so I said, I can't possibly go to Crawford, Texas. I'm trying to make this play. I'm trying to get this play, give this play a life, so I can get it out there to the American people and see it. And I said, I can go for 3 days.
So the next thing you knew.
I said, I'll go for 3 days. Just because I did believe. Mostly, to tell you the truth, I thought if I had died there and my mother wanted to say something, I would hope that other veterans would stand behind her.
Absolutely.
And so, I went there for this 3 days, which turned into a month of, living in the pastures, there in,
the tent village.
In Crawford, and met a lot of incredible people that now reappear along the way on the Peace Trail. And Joan Baez, who came there to sing.
Let's talk about the play. This is so great, but I don't want to go too far without actually telling people how they can see or where they can see the event.
Go to the website, theeyesofbabylon.com.
And we can finish from
and
there.
Our run is we're here in New York until July the 3rd.
And which theater is that?
59E 59
Oh,
Theaters,
that's
which
easy,
is the name of the theater is the
address, right?
Between Park and Madison. But, from Crawford on, we thought we'd bring the play to New York.
Right.
Obviously that's what you do. You open out of town, you bring a play to New York, you hope for good reviews, and then you take it out there to the world. And all along the way in Los Angeles, and I've lived, hand to mouth as this, I don't make any money, really. I don't.
Yeah, the
make
theater
any money.
is is not a profitable endeavor.
You don't go into off-Broadway theater really, to become rich. But, on my deathbed, if I'm, blessed enough to have a consciousness about it, I doubt that I'll say, I wish I made another $10,000 in my life.
Exactly.
But I am infinitely proud of what we've done with the play. So we decided to bring it to New York, actually, then. And I did a reading here. And there was a little bit of interest, one guy who had produced some stuff, he wanted me to change the name of the play to Naked Marine, and, that kind of, very, very predictable.
You do start out almost naked, and changing your clothes is like a big part. You begin by changing into your uniform. and
very symbolic.
Right, and then at the end you change into your dress uniform.
Exactly, and I very symbolically take that off. But it's not about the fact that I'm standing there in my underwear for part of the play, and I was I did want to go that direction. There's a lot of gay plays that are with gay subject matter that are, promoted because, some hot guy's naked on stage, and I don't want to do that. That's not my dream.
You have another message
I have another
here.
message.
Yeah.
Right.
So, for the first time, and, like in Los Angeles, people had come out of the woodwork and said, like, I don't have any money, but I very much believe in what you're doing. you know, let us help you get people in, or we'll do free ushering or anything.
That's
Little
fantastic.
angels came out of the woodwork. Not the story in New York. Like you know, it just felt like a big closed door, which was kind of surprising to me because, you know, New York is a huge part of the story. That's, you know,
because of an event in New York.
It starts because of an event in New York. You know, in some ways, my off-Broadway run in my heart is the play's coming home. So I just took that as a nod from the universe that says, you know, I had to reconsider why, again, we made the play. And I say we because Yuval Haddadi, my director, was very much involved. And I mean, his interest in the text, his passion for the text, you know, really, I have to give him a lot of the credit. He kicked my ass into doing it.
Interesting that he's Israeli too, and that because it's interesting to me because there's many stories of Israeli soldiers who've gone through similar events as you have. They've gone and occupied or gone into another country and then come to grips with, I don't think I should be here, and written stories, and I've heard stories like that.
Well, I think that Yuval's principal connection to it was that he loves the language, and he is an artist, and because I wasn't interested in even people who may share my politics. Usually, they could say a couple of sentences to me after I was back from Iraq before I wanted to kill them. You know,
because of their lack of understanding of the realities.
You know, people like you know, oh, good, you're against the war now too. You must believe all this,
Right.
You know, and I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I mean, I was handed my Communist Manifesto and my, you know, Destroy Israel pamphlets the minute I spoke out against the occupation of Iraq, and I do not support either one of those points of view. It does not win me a lot of fans in the left wing in America now. When you go to peace rallies, there, you know, I mean, I don't want to get off on that tear because I do want to talk about the positive.
Yeah, let's talk about the positive. That's interesting too because where you fit yourself in as that you became a Marine because you loved the country. I mean, you didn't.
I do love the country.
You were 30 plus years old when you decided to join the Marines. It seems unusual to me. I'm not sure if it's unusual, but we had Hartvejas on, another person who joined in his 30s because of the call of 9/11 in a way.
Right, he joined after 9/11,
which seems unusual to me. I'm not sure if it is or not.
You're talking about the age thing.
Yeah, it's a young man's game. So you must have been committed to come in there. And what drove you to join the Marines? You know, in your 30s, and you could easily have said, it's a young man's game. I'm old for this. You know, why did you do it?
Oh, I don't do anything that I do by looking outwards to like if it's whose game it is. Like everything I do is motivated on my own personal belief systems, and because I had grown up knowing what it felt like to be a defenseless person, and I grew into this. I'm 6'5", 235, you know, and while my intention is to resolve conflicts non-violently because I've seen the end game of what that looks like, which is war. Yeah. I don't call myself a pacifist. If somebody broke in right here and started, you know, hurting you all, I would use violence to stop it. I'm not, you know, I don't make any qualms about that, and I don't think, you know, I don't have to. We're not about to dissolve the United States military tomorrow. So my job is to now advocate for using it in a more responsible way. If we're going to have a military, you know, let's not, you know, while we're starving to death, you know, over here, and you know, people are sick and hungry in the United States, and we're, anyway, you know, and a lot of that.
Did you give it a second thought for being gay? Because going into the military.
No, I wanted to do it anyway. I would have done it. I would have done it anyway. I didn't.
That's not the point. Well, there's been gay people in the military
I was in my
forever.
30s. Yeah. I mean, I lived in Los Angeles. The whole thing around Don't Ask, Don't Tell just made me, at that point, laugh. You know, the experience of it is more psychologically damaging than one could imagine. But I mean, my straight buddies in the Marine Corps made it palatable for me because of their unqualified support of me. But I just thought, you know, before going in, I mean, I lived in Los Angeles. I mean, you know, a single gay man in his 30s in Los Angeles, who in the hell would go from that situation into a situation of possible war to get laid? I mean, that's just bizarre. You know,
I mean, has that come up? Is that something that?
I mean, that's what
they,
you know.
What people say about
the people who like advocate for not lifting the ban, or you know, like somehow gay people are joining the military to get laid. How stupid! Like, and you know, in the lead up to the lifting, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Even, I mean, and God bless him, he's the older generation and comes from his own experience. But the Commandant of the Marine Corps, you know, advocating for not lifting the ban, talked about like the macho culture of the Marine Corps,
Right.
which I haven't heard the word macho since the Village People, but you
Last
know,
used for the
he's
Village
right,
People.
and he's right in a lot of ways. It's a hyper-masculine, politically incorrect. Strong dogs eat the weak dogs or make them strong so that the pack stays strong, and it's a matter of life and death for that to be true. And I am a strong person. I'm a strong person. My body is strong, and my personality is strong, and so the other Marines respected that in me. So
now,
going
where are you
into
from originally?
Alabama.
Oh, okay, Louisiana.
Yeah, it's a nice state in there. I like the food. I love the food.
And what's your relationship to Alabama? I know your mom played such a big role in it. I mean, that phone call and the way in the beginning of the play you described.
Yeah, she's on her way to New York right now.
Oh,
she broke
good.
her leg this week. God bless her. People
Oops.
kept sending break a leg messages to me through her, and I think it stuck because
It
she
worked,
fell
right?
and broke her leg. So she's on her way to New York in a wheelchair to see, you know, her baby off Broadway.
Well, you know what Ethel always said? Ethel Eichelberger,
Tell
who's a
me.
playwright I worked for. He didn't like it when people said break a leg to him. So he would always say, break their legs.
Break their legs, kind of like make that poor son of a bitch die for his country. It's like, yeah, Patton. I recently met this burlesque star here in New York. Great lady. Had a good conversation with her. Bob's her name.
Okay.
And she doesn't like break a leg either. She says raise some horns, unicorn.
Oh, I like that too.
So I like that one too.
Right, great.
So we've been, to get back to the play, which is, you know, once again at 59E, 59 theaters. You can go to theeyesofbabylon.com and read the reviews we've gotten around the United States and in Dublin, Ireland, on the way to New York.
I'm ready to play actually the trailer. We can
Yeah,
take a minute.
yeah.
So why
Okay.
don't we go straight to the trailer
Yeah,
right
lay
now?
it on us.
And
I won't
give
watch
folks a
because I don't
chance
like to
see
watch
it.
myself.
Right,
But
I understand that.
We'll have some questions about the reviews too after we watch this.
Dear sir, this is the most difficult letter I've ever had to write. Hello?
Are you watching TV?
No, Mom, I'm sleeping.
Maybe you should be.
Are we going to war? Bought all these books on the Taliban. Know your enemy, they always say. And then the strangest thing happened. One night, while I was asleep, somebody switched the enemy.
Before September the 11th, many in the world believed that Saddam Hussein could be contained.
By the time Oscar night rolled around, Michael Moore took the stage. All I saw was some fat guy screaming that I was going to a fictitious war. I was packed for Iraq, praying for fictitious bullets.
Hey, Devil, you know Marink over at Motor T?
Yeah, what about him?
He's dead, bro. Grab your shit, we gotta get the vehicle.
I choke on the reality forcing its way out my throat. My heart is shoving it out sideways. My God, I can't think of the shadow of that fucking fort. Why can't we leave this place? My writing will save me. In a filthy, impoverished, war-torn country, I have found the very seed of all that is beautiful and perfect and right. Mister, no more mister. I'm Jeff. There are those who will not call me brother, now that they know who I really am. I'd still stand between them and a bullet. I'm a United States Marine. I will die a Marine. How pathetic. After all I've been through, having to worry about explaining the musical Rent to those who don't want to get it. You don't have to be a Republican to be patriotic, and you don't have to be a Baptist to love God.
Jeff Key, that's an amazing one-man play, one of the most amazing one-man plays I've had the opportunity to watch. And
the trailer should drag them in. I mean,
Yes,
that's
tell
beautifully
people where-
made. And
tell people where they can see it.
The play is at 59E59 Theaters, which is on 59th Street between Park and Madison. TheEyesOfBabylon.com can give you all the information you need and lead you to tickets. We are here through July 3rd.
Go see it, definitely.
Right. So what's it like to be a gay guy in a combat zone in the Marine Corps?
Oh, can I interrupt 1 second? Because I
Yes.
wanted to ask about
Go
one
right
of the
ahead.
reviews. I wanted to ask about your reaction to being compared to, now I dropped his name, the poet,
Oh, Allen Ginsberg.
Allen Ginsberg.
The
And
the
Jack
LA
Kerouac,
Times.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Tribune, and I mean, I knew something of the beats before
Yeah.
I started doing this play, but then when the critics started comparing the writing to the beat poets, I started paying more attention to the poetry, and you know, I mean, I got chills thinking about Howl just now. You know, that there's a pristine music within that writing. That moves me very deeply, and I'm number one. Like, I mean, my inclination is it says I think they're crazy, you know, but I'm very very humbled by the kindness of those comparisons, and their experience. I mean, I look at that time, like I mentioned earlier that Joan Baez sort of found me there in Crawford, and she knew. I mean, she could see me. I was determined. I'd lost 20 pounds in Iraq, and I was determined to end the war by myself, and she just sort of yanked me aside and said, if you don't learn to take care of yourself, you're going to die. You know, you're going to burn out, and you're not going to be able to do
process,
this.
yeah.
And not only that, this is a long haul thing. I mean, she's been,
And you
God
can
knows,
respect her
fighting
for
this.
saying that, yeah, absolutely.
Shoot, since I was a baby, she's been advocating for things that were she's been talking about things that have been needed to talk about. She was down in my part of the country with Dr. King, and she's traveled the world speaking out for peace. I mean, I can answer your question about what it's like to be gay in a combat zone in a sentence. It's probably a lot like it is to be straight in a combat zone.
Awful.
Awful.
I mean,
both ways.
Horrifying.
Right. So you don't really. I mean, I don't know. I've never been in a combat zone, but it seems like the way they make it out in all the media is that somehow you would be discriminated against or feel like some negativity from people around you, or feel you have to hide something.
But that's life on Earth for gay people. I mean, I walk the streets of New York, which is arguably one of the most progressive places on the planet, and I feel discrimination. I know that, I'm certain that in the 1950s, there were some black people that thought, to whatever horrible levels of discrimination there were against black people then, comparing their experience then to slavery, thought, wow, it's not so bad for us anymore.
It's getting better.
It's getting better. And now we look at the 1950s and see how horrible that is. I'd love to come back, and I pray, it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that we will continue to evolve in the right direction. I mean, it seems like the growing backlash against gay people just trying to assert our, equal citizenry in this country is very frightening, So, it was there, but, not so much. Really, like I said, my friends in the Marine Corps understood my commitment to the country and to them, and they knew that I would never betray their trust of me.
And you really rely on one another in a deep way when you're in a critical situation.
In a way that sometimes families don't.
Right.
These are men who are willing in the moment to give his entire life for me. And I say men not to not recognize the sacrifice that women made, because I was in a combat battalion where we were all men. Right. And in a bizarre sort of way, and I've thought a lot about it since 2000, which is when I took the oath on the anniversary of D-Day in 2000. And I've reflected on what took me as a 34-year-old man into the recruiting office that day, often, and the reasons are multifaceted. The short list of reasons I give on stage about defending our Constitution and defending defenseless people, and in trying to work for peace on earth, and because I love my country are reasons that are absolutely true. My own homophobia probably had something to do with walking into that office, because I have gotten a lot of sort of positive feedback for not being stereotypically gay, which I think is sad and wrong. You know, there's nothing. Straight acting is a homophobic term. I mean, straight acting means you have sex with women, which I don't, so I'm not straight acting, you know. I have no interest in that.
It's not a personality description.
Right.
So
we only have a couple minutes left, and I wanted to ask you, too, about your impressions of Iraq and of the people in Iraq that you met, because you do touch on that in the play, and I found that sort of touching and interesting. And could you tell us a little bit about that, and if you were surprised or it was different than you'd expected it when you got there, how it affected you?
My interaction with the Iraqis, especially the children, was an integral part of this. I'm often asked in interviews, when was the moment when?
Right.
There was no moment. It was this evolving realization that these, they reminded me a lot of Alabamians. They spoke a different language. They're simple dirt farmers, who cared little for politics except that it was forced on them. And, hoping that, I think that that's one of the main things that the play offers people. At least that's the feedback I get from audience members. The most common comment is, I felt like I was there and I felt like I could see the Iraqis. And so that's great. That
That's
means
an
I've done my
incredible
job.
accomplishment. Yeah, that's fantastic.
I want them to have that experience. That's the reason I do the play.
Last minute or so, what would you like to tell the viewers? Anything you'd like them to come away with from this interview?
Yes, come to see the play. Yeah, I say it somewhat jokingly, but pieces of theater like this, theater in general, has been such an important part of moving us forward in all the ways that we have as a species since for thousands of years, and small off-Broadway theater like this competes against entertainment that has many millions of dollars of advertising budget at their disposal. We are the existence of this kind of theater depends on people's willingness to spread the word by word of mouth and to come in and pay the fraction of the cost of a Broadway ticket and see plays that talk about these very important issues that are in the headlines today.
Right, and you're working on a new play.
I am. My next solo play, called Yankee Doodle Faggot, tells the rest of the story, my journey through traveling in the peace movement in the United States, and on some little flashbacks to kind of explain how I got to be the man I am. And then I'm simultaneously writing a play that is not a solo piece that's based on my teenage friendships in Alabama.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff Key, for joining us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Great, and have a good time. Thanks.
Absolutely.